Okay, picking it up now in the final part of this week's lecture. So, cloud storage, again, still focusing on storage, forms of storage. Now, in addition to storing data locally, like on the hard disk or SSD or some other media that we've discussed, you can use cloud storage available for home and business, right? Might be something to consider including in your end of course project, which is demonstrating your home network and the security features that you're using. Now, the benefits of cloud storage are many, right? Cloud storage can save costs, right? So there are economies of scale, we like to say. There's by many people using it, it gets cheaper, is what I'm saying. There's data redundancy and replication, right? So that's good for security and other features, or system failure, part failure. There's regulatory compliance if you're a business, perhaps. A protection against ransomware or malware, right? At ransomware, if somebody takes charge and encrypts your hard drive, you can't get that back without paying them a fee. And if you pay them a fee, are they really going to unlock it? You never know. The data could be lost forever. So it's a protection against that. You take your hard drive, set it back to factory standards, and connect to the cloud again and download your data. So anyhow, those are some of the advantages I thought we should discuss together. So there are many types of cloud, public, private, etc. A personal cloud I wanted to mention, or personal cloud storage, sometimes called PCS. This is a local network attached storage, network attached storage. That's NAS. I mentioned that. So I mentioned DAS earlier. Well, this is a NAS, network attached storage. And it's attached to your local network, and it lets the user, and you in this case, the client, store data and photos, music, etc. on files outside of your hard drive, but locally, and is optimized, a way to optimize for media streaming, for example. Just some notes there. Okay, so optical discs. Optical disk drive uses laser light to read the data, read the data and to write the data to an optical disc. Optical discs are things like CDs and DVDs, and the modern, most up-to-date version, which is Blu-ray discs, right? This allows us to play music or watch movies using these pre-recorded discs read or written to by laser light. Now, as a laser assembly reads the spinning disc, right? It converts these items on the disc into sequences of electrical signals, right? These pits and landmarks on the disc. It's converted into a sequence of electric signals. And so when the beam hits a landmark, right, it's reflected in this photodiode, which produces an electric signal. So laser beams are then scattered by the pits, and that's how the optical disc works. This is just FYI, really. So that was really just for background information, mostly. What I do want to discuss, though, are these types, right? A compact disc read-only memory, we call it a CD-ROM. This is a read-only disc, as the name indicates. So these type of discs are created commercially, and you cannot save data to them once they've been created. They're read-only memory. Now, a compact disc that's a CDR, that's recordable. This is a write once, read multiple times. So that's known as a worm. Write once, read multiple disk, and that's a worm disk, a CDR. And a compact disc rewritable, a CDRW. This is an erasable disk that can be reused. So interesting features there. Similarly for DVDs, right? There are many differences between the DVR and the DVRW, right? And so one is that the R is the write once format, and the data can be burned on the DVD only once. On the other hand, data on the RW disk can be erased and rewritten several times. Now, both DVD-R and DVD-RW come with advantages and disadvantages, right? You have to choose for yourself. Now, I mentioned we would talk about enterprise storage. Enterprise hardware allows large organizations to manage and store data and information using devices intended for heavy use. Maximum efficiency and maximum availability, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. It often includes levels of redundancy, which means that if one computer fails or malfunctions, another one can assume its tasks. Sometimes you'll find these enterprise hardware on premises, sometimes just called on-prem is the short, or to say it another way, in-house. And some are outside the organization in cloud storage, known as outsourcing. So enterprises use a combination of these storage techniques and also incorporate such techniques like RAID and NAS, that network area storage, to meet their enterprise storage needs. Now, something that's not in the literature, but I wanted you to be aware of, is the term fault tolerance. And fault tolerance is the ability of a system to continue providing services despite a component failure. And it's a consideration when installing equipment. Do you need fault tolerance? It costs money, right? So RAID offers not only increased storage capacity, but improved performance. And it'll also give us, in many cases, fault tolerance as well. So RAID fault tolerance is, as the name suggests, that ability for RAID array to tolerate hard drive failures. And this is where a redundant part of RAID comes in. Now on this slide, I show you pictures of RAID 0 and RAID 1. There are many types of RAIDs, right? Most commonly used RAID levels, you could look them up for yourself outside of this course, are RAID 0, RAID 1, RAID 5, RAID 6, and RAID 10. My company uses at least a RAID 6 level in certain areas, not in all areas. It's very expensive. RAID 0, RAID 1, and RAID 5 work on both HDD and SSD media. Excuse me. So this slide is really beyond the course, but I just thought it was interesting, right? RAID 1 refers to disk mirroring. That's when data is written to one disk and is duplicated on a second disk. So RAID 1 is going to require a minimum of 2 disk physical drives. It's as data is written simultaneously to these two places. And the drives are essentially mirror images of each other. So if one drive fails, the other one can take over and provide access to the data that's stored on the drive. Now RAID 0, also known as a striped set or striped volume, it splits or stripes the data evenly across 2 or more disks. So without parity information and without redundancy and without fault tolerance, right? So RAID 0 provides no fault tolerance, but it does increase disk speed by double the factor, at least 2 times or better. RAID 1 mirrors the data on multiple disks to provide fault tolerance, but requires more space for less data. Now continuing with enterprise storage, we have NAS. NAS I mentioned. We talked about DAS earlier. We've also touched on NAS a little bit in the personal cloud. Now NAS is a storage system, so we look at it in detail. Storage system connected to a network that allows storage and retrieval of data from a centralized location for authorized network users. Now NAS systems are flexible, they scale out, meaning that as you need additional storage, you can add on to what you have. So for your home course project, I would say consider this. Of course, these topics sometimes don't get as much attention as, say, smart speakers or fitness trackers, but network attached storage or NAS drives are worth consideration as a place in your smart home. Essentially, NAS drives are hard drives that connect to the web and make them extremely versatile, presenting a host of useful applications. I mentioned the use of a personal cloud storage via a NAS drive at home. Now, a SAN. A SAN is a storage area network. This is a specialized high-speed network that provides block-level network access to storage. So SANs are typically composed of host switches and storage elements and storage devices that are interconnected, right? Much of this beyond this course, but just to be aware of the SAN concept. Now, closing in on the final slides, I have to talk about magnetic tape. Magnetic tape is data storage. It's a system for storing digital information on this magnetic tape in a digital recording. Initially, we used to have large open reels where those were the most common format. Modern magnetic tape, however, is most commonly packaged in cartridges and cassettes, and that are widely used for backup. In fact, there we go. There's a picture of it. And tape storage is no longer used, again, as the primary method of storage, but in business, it's often used tape as a long-term storage and backup. Now, other types of storage include smart cards. Smart cards have significant benefits versus magnetic strips, sometimes just called a mag strip cards, right? You can use them, for example, for healthcare information. The thing about smart cards is they support digital signatures, which can be used to determine that the card was issued by a valid organization and that the data on the card has not been fraudulently altered since it was issued. That's one of the advantages to a smart card. Now, card issuers have a chip-enabled card that provides really great protection against fraud, better than this traditional magnetic strip credit card that you see on the slide. So unlike a magnetic strip, which holds the static amount of data in the card about the account, the chip on your new credit cards is smart. It's smart enough to produce a unique code each time it's used and can update the data. Now, smart cards, again, have two types of interfaces. There's contact and contactless. Contact smart cards are inserted into the card reader, smart card reader, when you're checking out, say, at a grocery store, making physical contact with the reader. However, contactless smart cards have an antenna that's embedded inside the card, and this is what enables communication with the reader without physical contact. Other types of storage include RFID, right? So RFID uses radio waves. So radio waves transmit data from the tag to a reader, and which transmits the information to an RFID computer. And RFID tags are frequently used for merchandise. They can also be used to track vehicles, pets, even patients with Alzheimer's disease. Very interesting. There's passive and active forms. More on that in your book. I also wanted to touch on NFC, Near Field Communications. This technology allows users to make secure transactions, right? It's contactless, right? But from a very narrow area, from a very small range, NFC. This is a technology in your smartphone that's making easy payments with, say, Samsung Pay, for example. Again, more about that in your book. That wraps up Chapter 8. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed being with you. Make sure you contact me if I can be of any assistance as we continue the learning process together.